My name is Lynda, and at 67 years old, I've built a real estate empire from nothing but determination and grit. My only son, Thomas, was my pride and joy until our relationship crumbled after my husband's death. When Thomas got engaged to Sophia from the wealthy Henderson family, I was hopeful things would improve. Instead, I found myself standing alone in an empty restaurant on what I thought was his wedding day. If you're watching this, let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that like and subscribe button while I tell you what happens when a mother's love is tested by the ultimate betrayal. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone. My parents worked hard just to put food on the table. From an early age, I knew I wanted more out of life. I started small selling houses, part-time while working as a receptionist. By 30, I had my own real estate agency. That same year, I met Robert, the love of my life. Robert was kind, gentle, and supported my ambitions when most men in the 80s felt threatened by career women. We married within a year and immediately tried starting a family. But life had other plans. For years, we faced the heartbreak of infertility, multiple miscarriages, and failed treatments. Our miracle happened when I was 40. Thomas came into our world, a perfect 7-pound baby boy with his father's blue eyes and my stubborn chin. I can still remember holding him for the first time, promising him the world and more. While I continued growing my business, Robert took on most of the childcare duties. He was the one who attended school functions, coached Little League, and helped with homework. I was present for the big moments, but missed many of the small ones, always believing there would be time later to make up for my absence. Everything changed when Thomas turned 15. Robert complained about heartburn one evening after dinner. By midnight, I was a widow, and Thomas lost the parent who had been his daily constant. The doctors said it was a massive heart attack. No warning, no chance for goodbye. Thomas withdrew into himself after the funeral. I tried reaching out, but I didn't know how to comfort him when I could barely manage my own grief. Instead of emotional support, I gave him things I thought would make him happy. A new car when he turned 16, expensive gaming systems, lavish vacations. My business actually thrived during this period. I threw myself into work, expanding into commercial real estate and property development. By the time Thomas graduated high school, I was one of the wealthiest women in the state. But success came at a price. The distance between my son and me had grown from a crack to a canyon. Through college, our relationship was functional but strained. He'd call when he needed money or had a problem with his apartment. I'd send care packages he rarely acknowledged. During holidays and breaks, he'd spend a minimum amount of time at home before disappearing to friends' houses. When Thomas graduated from business school with honors, I expected him to join the family company. I'd even prepared an office for him, envisioning us working side by side. But he had other plans. He wanted to launch a tech startup instead. I was disappointed but tried not to show it. I gave him seed money and introduced him to potential investors, silently hoping he would fail and realize the security of our family business. It wasn't my proudest moment as a mother. 3 years ago, Thomas met Sophia at a charity gala I had sponsored, but couldn't attend due to a business emergency. She came from old money, the Hendersons, with connections throughout the city. When Thomas brought her to dinner the first time, I noticed how she surveyed our home with a critical eye, despite it being a 12,000 square foot estate in the most prestigious neighborhood. I tried bonding with Sophia, inviting her for lunch, sending thoughtful gifts. She was unfailingly polite, but cold, like she was tolerating me for Thomas's sake. Still, I kept trying, telling myself it was natural for a young woman to be nervous around her boyfriend's mother. Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago changed everything. Thomas and Sophia announced their engagement, showing off a diamond that I later learned cost him 3 months of his company's profits. I was genuinely happy for them and immediately offered to help with wedding planning. "That's really not necessary, Lynda," Sophia said with a tight smile. "Mom has been planning my wedding since I was little. She knows exactly what I want." Over the next several months, I watched from the sidelines as Sophia's parents took control. Her mother, Vivian, orchestrated everything from venue selection to flower arrangements. Her father Richard boasted about covering costs for a 500-person wedding at the city's most exclusive hotel. "We wouldn't dream of having you worry about expenses," Richard told me during one of the few planning meetings I was invited to. "After all, you've worked so hard all these years. Time to let someone else handle things." The comment stung, implying I had somehow neglected Thomas by being a working mother. I smiled through it, determined not to create drama. As the wedding approached, Thomas began cancelling our occasional brunches and movie nights. "Sophia needs me to look at cakes," or "the Hendersons want us for dinner," became his standard excuses. When we did speak, conversations revolved around their registry at high-end stores or honeymoon plans to private islands. I remained generous, despite feeling increasingly sidelined. When Thomas mentioned they had found their dream house but couldn't quite afford it, I decided to give them $2 million as a wedding gift. It represented a significant portion of my liquid assets, but I wanted to do something extraordinary to show my love and support. The formal invitation finally arrived, an elaborate affair with gold embossing and real silk ribbons. However, I noticed it contained minimal information, just date time and venue name. No details about rehearsal dinner, morning preparations, or other traditional pre-wedding activities. I called Thomas for clarification. "Mom, it's all being handled. Just show up for the ceremony," he said, sounding distracted. "But surely there's a rehearsal dinner. Family photos before the ceremony," I pressed. "Look, I'm really busy right now. Sophia's handling most of this with her mom. I'll text you if there's anything you need to know." A week before the wedding, I saw photos on social media of what was clearly a pre-wedding dinner with both families. Everyone was there except me. When I called Thomas, he claimed it was just an impromptu thing that wasn't worth bothering me about. Despite growing anxiety, I was determined to be there for my son's big day. 2 days before the wedding, I called Thomas one last time to confirm details. "So the ceremony is at the Grand Plaza Hotel at 2 o'clock on Saturday, correct?" I asked, calendar in hand. "Actually, we moved it to the Belmont restaurant. Everything else is the same. Gotta go, Mom. Sophia needs me," he replied hurriedly before hanging up. I marked the date and location in my calendar, my excitement pushing aside any lingering doubts. I woke up early on what I believed was Thomas's wedding day. The June sunshine streamed through my windows as I prepared for this momentous occasion. I'd bought a new outfit for the event, an elegant champagne-colored dress with a matching jacket from an exclusive boutique, spending nearly $4,000 to look my best. My hair appointment was at 9, followed by professional makeup at 10:30. I wanted everything to be perfect. While the stylist worked on my hair, I chatted excitedly about seeing my only son get married. She smiled sympathetically, perhaps sensing something I didn't. Back home, I carefully placed the check for $2 million in a handcrafted wooden box, along with a heartfelt letter expressing my love and hopes for Thomas's future. I had the check made out to both Thomas and Sophia, a symbolic gesture welcoming her into our family. The amount was enough to buy their dream house outright and still have money left over for furnishings. At 1 o'clock, I left home, allowing plenty of time to reach the Belmont restaurant. It was an upscale establishment in the city's financial district, not a venue I would have expected for a wedding, but I assumed it reflected Sophia's unique taste. When I arrived, the restaurant looked normal, busy with the usual Saturday lunch crowd, but no signs of a wedding. No flowers, no reserved signs, no wedding guests in formal attire. Confusion settled in as I approached the maitre d'. "I'm here for the Thomas Wilson and Sophia Henderson wedding," I said confidently. The maitre d' consulted his reservation book, then looked up with a puzzled expression. "I'm sorry, madam, but we don't have any weddings scheduled today." "There must be a mistake. My son specifically told me his wedding would be here today at 2 o'clock. He checked again. The only reservation under those names was for a dinner last night for 30 people. It was a wedding-related event, but not a ceremony. My heart began to race. I thanked him and moved to the restaurant's lounge area, pulling out my phone to call Thomas. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. I called Sophia Thomas's best friend Jake and even a couple of distant relatives who were supposed to attend. No one picked up. After an hour of waiting and multiple unanswered calls, I began to feel physically ill. Had I somehow misunderstood? Was I at the wrong venue? Was the wedding actually tomorrow? Finally, after my 6th call, Thomas answered, sounding relaxed and slightly annoyed. "Mom, what's up? We're about to have lunch on the beach. Thomas, where are you?" "I'm at the Belmont for your wedding, but they say there's no wedding today." There was a pause, then a muffled conversation with someone else. I heard Sophia's distinctive laugh in the background. "Oh, the wedding was yesterday. I think you missed it," he said casually, as if informing me I'd missed a casual dinner, not his wedding. "Didn't you get my text with the updated information?" My legs nearly gave out. I had to sit down. "No, Thomas, I never received any text. You told me Saturday at the Belmont." "Well, it was actually Friday at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Everyone was asking where you were. We figured you had a business emergency or something." The room began to spin. Yesterday, while I was getting my nails done and finalizing my outfit, my only son was getting married without me. "Why didn't you call when you didn't see me there?" My voice cracked with emotion. "It was hectic, Mom. And honestly, the ceremony went so smoothly without any drama. Sophia was happy, and that's what mattered." I couldn't speak. The tears came silently as other restaurant patrons cast concerned glances my way. "Anyway, Mom, we're heading to Bali tonight for our honeymoon. We'll catch up when we get back. Oh, and did you bring our wedding gift? You can mail it to our apartment if it's too big." I hung up without answering. The restaurant manager, noticing my distress, kindly offered a private room where I could compose myself. There, with shaking hands, I checked social media. My feed was flooded with photos from yesterday's wedding, everyone in Thomas's life, and Sophia's large extended family posed in elegant groupings. The ceremony, the reception, the first dance, all captured in perfect detail. In one photo, Sophia stood between her parents, captioned, "Complete family portrait with the people who matter most." In another, the caption read, "Perfect day with no drama," with a winking emoji. The devastating truth hit me all at once. This wasn't a mistake or miscommunication. I had been deliberately excluded from one of the most important days of my son's life. The drive home passed in a blur. Rain had begun to fall, mirroring the tears streaming down my face. Every red light became a moment to breathe through the pain crushing my chest. My mind kept replaying moments from Thomas's childhood. His 5th birthday, when I surprised him with the puppy he'd been begging for, teaching him to ride a bike on weekends. The pride in his eyes when I attended his high school graduation, arriving directly from the airport after cutting a business trip short. Had I imagined the good times? Had I been such a terrible mother that my only child would deliberately exclude me from his wedding? When I finally reached home, the large house felt emptier than ever. I kicked off my heels in the foyer and sank onto the grand staircase, still holding the wooden box with the $2 million check. My phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. Thinking it might be Thomas, with an explanation or apology, I quickly checked it. Instead, it was Sophia's mother, Vivian. "Lynda, darling," her voice dripped with false concern. "We missed you at the wedding yesterday, though honestly the ceremony was absolutely perfect. Sometimes things work out for the best, don't they? Thomas told us about the confusion with dates. So unfortunate. Anyway, just checking in. Ciao." The pieces started coming together. This hadn't been a simple mistake. The vague invitation, the conflicting information, the lack of details, it had all been calculated. I scrolled through more wedding photos online. In one album, I found group shots with every conceivable family configuration. Sophia with her parents, with her siblings, with extended family, with Thomas and her parents. There wasn't a single mention of the groom's mother being absent, not even in the comments, as if I didn't exist. My phone pinged with a text from Thomas. "Hey Mom, forgot to ask about the wedding gift. Is it something you can ship to us before we get back from Bali?" Sophia's parents got us the honeymoon and a summer house. No apology, no explanation, just a request for the gift. Sleep eluded me that night. I kept thinking about the wooden box sitting on my dresser, containing a check that would solve all their financial concerns, a gift they expected despite their cruelty. The next morning, my sister Jane called. We weren't particularly close, but she'd been invited to the wedding. "Lynda, are you okay? I didn't see you yesterday." "You knew it was yesterday. Did you try to call me?" My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. There was a long pause. "Thomas told everyone you had the wrong date, but made us promise not to say anything. He said it would be awkward and potentially cause a scene. I thought it was strange, but Vivian Henderson convinced everyone it was for the best. For the best, to humiliate me, to make me show up alone at an empty restaurant." The anger finally broke through my shock. "I'm so sorry, Lynda. I should have called you. Thomas said you'd been difficult about the wedding, and this was the cleanest solution." Difficult, I had offered help and been rebuffed. I had tried to connect with Sophia and been met with coldness. I had been nothing but generous with both time and money. "Sophia's parents never liked you," Jane continued reluctantly. "They thought you weren't refined enough for their daughter's wedding. Something about you being new money and a working mother." The conversation confirmed what I already suspected. This had been a calculated exclusion, not a mistake. Thomas had lied to me and instructed others to maintain the lie. My own son had decided I wasn't worthy of attending his wedding. Initially, I planned to confront them immediately, to demand explanations. Instead, I decided to take time to process my feelings. I turned off my phone and spent the day alternating between grief and rage. When I finally checked my messages the next day, Thomas had texted multiple times, each message more insistent about the wedding gift. "Mom, we're about to board for Bali and wondering about the gift. Can you let us know what you got us? Sophia's making a list. Did you send something to the apartment we're having the concierge check?" No concern for my feelings, no acknowledgement of what they'd done, just entitlement and expectation. 3 days after the wedding, I was sitting in my home office reviewing documents when my housekeeper announced that Thomas and Sophia had arrived unannounced. Taking a deep breath, I told her to show them into the living room. Sophia looked tanned and irritated, wearing designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. Thomas seemed uncomfortable but determined. Neither looked particularly apologetic. "Mom, we came straight from the airport." Thomas began, giving me a quick, awkward hug. "We wanted to clear the air about the wedding." Sophia nodded. "Yes, it was unfortunate you couldn't make it, though everything went perfectly smooth, not a single problem." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "There seems to have been a miscommunication about the date." Thomas continued, settling onto my Italian leather sofa without being invited to sit. "I thought I texted you the update." "Strange that no one else had this miscommunication," I said quietly, remaining standing. "Only me." Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "Well, these things happen. The important thing is that it was a beautiful ceremony. Sophia was stunning." He squeezed his new wife's hand. "Yes, I saw the photos. All 500 of them on social media. Everyone looked so happy, especially you, Thomas, celebrating with your complete family, as Sophia captioned it." Sophia's smile tightened. "Well, my family was there in full force. No one was missing from our side. The emphasis on our side was unmistakable." "Let's move forward," Thomas said quickly. "We actually came to talk about something else too." "The gift," I stated flatly. Thomas had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. "Well, yes. We're finalizing the purchase of our dream house next week, and all the wedding gifts are being factored into our budget. You had mentioned doing something special for us, and well, we need to know the amount," Sophia interjected bluntly, "for financial planning purposes." I studied them both for a long moment. "Before we discuss gifts, I'd like clarity on why I was given the wrong date and location for your wedding, and why no one called when I wasn't there." Thomas sighed impatiently. "Mom, it wasn't intentional. It was just a mix-up. A mix-up that only affected me, not Sophia's extended family from Europe, not your college friends, just your mother." Thomas glanced at Sophia, who rolled her eyes almost imperceptibly. "Fine," he said finally. "Sophia's parents thought you might make things awkward. They wanted their daughter's day to be perfect. And you agreed with them." The pain in my voice was evident. "You have to understand, Mom. You can be a lot sometimes. Always trying to take control, make everything about your success. Sophia's parents offered to pay for everything if we did it their way. Their way meaning without your mother. It wasn't personal," Sophia cut in coolly. "My parents just wanted a certain aesthetic for the wedding, a certain class of people. And I don't fit that aesthetic." I felt eerily calm now. Thomas at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "It's not that. It's just, Sophia's family has been established for generations. They do things differently. And what about after the wedding? What were your plans regarding our relationship?" The uncomfortable glance between them told me everything. "We thought," Thomas began hesitantly, "that maybe we could keep things simple, holiday dinners occasionally, brief visits." While still accepting my financial support, I finished for him. "Well, you always said you wanted to help with my business and future," Thomas replied defensively. "That hasn't changed just because I'm married." It was clear now. They had planned to take my money while keeping me at a distance. I was good enough to fund their lifestyle, but not good enough to be seen at their wedding. Without a word, I reached for my purse on the side table and removed the wooden box. Opening it slowly, I took out the check for $2 million. Their eyes widened at the amount. "This was my wedding gift to you both," I said softly. "A new home and a fresh start." Thomas leaned forward eagerly. "Mom, that's incredibly generous. We didn't expect." Before he could finish, I began tearing the check slowly and deliberately into tiny pieces. The sound of ripping paper filled the otherwise silent room. "What are you doing?" Sophia shrieked, jumping up. "Are you insane? Mom, stop. That's $2 million. Thomas tried to grab the pieces, but I let them flutter to the carpet between us. "Consider it my response to your wedding invitation," I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. Sophia's face contorted with rage. "You bitter old woman, you can't do this to us. We were counting on that money. For a house you didn't think I was good enough to visit. For grandchildren you had no intention of letting me know," I asked quietly. "This is why we didn't want you at the wedding," Sophia shouted. "You always make everything about you. You and your self-made millionaire story that everyone's sick of hearing." Thomas stood now too, his face red. "Mom, you need to fix this. Call the bank, stop the check, write a new one. Now." "No, Thomas, I don't need to do anything. What I needed was a son who wanted his mother at his wedding. What I needed was basic respect." "We'll sue you," Sophia threatened. "My father knows judges." "For what?" "Destroying my own check. Please have your father explain to his judge friends how you're entitled to my money after deliberately excluding me from your wedding." They became increasingly frantic, alternating between threats and attempts at manipulation. Thomas tried guilt. "After all I've been through losing Dad, while Sophia went for intimidation, my family will destroy your reputation in this town." When they refused to leave, I calmly picked up the phone and called security for my gated community. As the guards escorted them out, I watched Sophia frantically trying to gather the torn check pieces from the carpet. The last thing I heard was Thomas shouting, "You'll regret this, Mom. You're going to die alone." Perhaps, but at least I would die with my dignity intact. The days following our confrontation were a roller coaster of emotions. One moment I felt empowered by my decision to stand up for myself, the next, I was overwhelmed by grief for the relationship I'd lost. Had I contributed to creating this entitled behavior in Thomas, I'd used money to bridge emotional gaps, taught him that financial support was how I showed love. My phone became a battlefield of escalating texts, from Thomas ranging from angry accusations to attempted manipulation. "You've always been selfish. This just proves it. Dad would be ashamed of you right now. I'm your only family. You're going to regret this when you need someone to care for you. We can work this out. Let's talk about a smaller amount to get us started." I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? Sophia's parents entered the fray next. Richard Henderson called my office, leaving messages with my assistant about resolving this unfortunate situation in a manner beneficial to all parties. The implied threat was clear: they would make trouble if I didn't pay. Concerned, I consulted my attorney Marcus, who had handled my affairs for 20 years. "They don't have a legal leg to stand on, Lynda," he assured me after hearing the full story. "A gift promise, especially one not in writing, isn't enforceable. And frankly, if they push this, they'll look terrible in public." Should I be worried about their social connections? Richard Henderson implied he could cause problems for my business. Marcus shook his head. "Henderson old money isn't what it used to be. Word around the club is they've been leveraging Sophia's marriage to your son for a financial boost. That $2 million would have helped them as much as it would have helped Thomas and Sophia." This new information confirmed my suspicions about their motives. It wasn't just about excluding someone they saw as socially inferior. It was about accessing my money while keeping me at arm's length. After 2 weeks of unanswered messages, Thomas called, sounding more controlled. "Mom, we need to talk about moving forward. This silent treatment isn't productive." I agreed to speak with him alone without Sophia. We met at a neutral location, a private room in my club's restaurant. "I've had time to think." He began looking more like the son I remembered. "Things got out of hand. The wedding plans spiraled with Sophia's parents involved, and you chose their approval over my presence," I said quietly. "It wasn't that simple. You don't understand the pressure they put on me. I understand choices, Thomas. You made yours." He leaned forward. "Look, I'm willing to apologize for the miscommunication about the date. That was handled poorly. Miscommunication: you deliberately gave me the wrong information and instructed others not to correct it." His expression hardened. "Fine. Yes, I didn't want you there because everything always becomes about you. Sophia's parents offered to pay for the perfect wedding if we did it their way. It was a business decision." "A business decision," I repeated. "Is that how you see our relationship? A business arrangement? Isn't that what you taught me? That money solves problems, that success is what matters most?" His words stung because there was a grain of truth in them. I had prioritized business success, believing financial security was the greatest gift I could give him. "Where do we go from here?" I asked finally. His answer was immediate and clear. "We can have a relationship if you support us financially like you always promised. Otherwise, I don't see the point." The simplicity of his ultimatum broke my heart, but also clarified everything. My son was offering a transactional relationship, his presence in exchange for my money. "I'll always be your mother, Thomas. My door will always be open for a real relationship based on mutual respect, but I won't buy your affection anymore." He left without another word. The aftermath was painful but predictable. Sophia launched what amounted to a social media smear campaign, posting concerned messages about aging parents and mental health issues in the elderly. Thomas remained silent publicly, but told family members I was having cognitive issues, explaining away my erratic behavior regarding the wedding gift. My sister Jane, feeling guilty about her role in the wedding deception, became an unexpected ally. She defended me to extended family and made a point of visiting regularly. Several old friends I'd neglected while focused on business rallied around me as well. Through Jane, I found a support group for parents estranged from adult children. The stories shared there helped me realize I wasn't alone. Parents who had given everything only to be discarded when they stopped being useful financially or otherwise. It was a club no one wanted to join, but I found strength in their experiences. Grief came in waves. Some days I could focus on work and almost forget. Other days memories would ambush me. A photo of Thomas's graduation, his first business presentation, our last cordial Christmas together. I allowed myself to feel the pain rather than numbing it with work. 6 months after the wedding debacle, I began re-evaluating my wealth and its purpose. I'd accumulated more money than I could spend in my lifetime, all with the vague notion of leaving it to Thomas someday. With that plan now questionable, what was it all for? I started small funding scholarships for young women in business. Then I sponsored a mentorship program for first-generation college students. Each meaningful contribution healed something in me. Through the mentorship program, I met Zara, a brilliant young entrepreneur whose drive reminded me of myself at 25. She had innovative ideas, but needed guidance navigating the business world. Mentoring her gave me purpose that had nothing to do with checkbooks or guilt. There were still dark days, still moments when I reached for the phone to call Thomas out of habit. But gradually, I found new rhythms, new joys, new connections that weren't shadowed by expectations or manipulation. 1 year has passed since I stood alone in that restaurant, since I tore up the check that represented my last attempt to buy my son's love. The pain hasn't disappeared, but it's transformed into something more manageable, like an old injury that aches when it rains, but doesn't prevent me from living. I've created a new life rhythm centered around purpose rather than possession. The foundation I established helps young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, providing not just funding, but mentorship and business connections. In many ways, these ambitious young people have become my extended family. My relationship with my community has deepened as well. Without the constant focus on Thomas and his needs, I've reconnected with old friends and made new ones. My home, once a showplace rarely used for actual living, now hosts regular gatherings, dinner parties, book clubs, foundation meetings. The empty rooms are filled with laughter and purpose. Thomas remains a missing piece in my heart. I've left the door open for reconciliation, but on healthier terms. We had a brief civil interaction at my cousin's funeral 3 months ago. He seemed thinner, less polished than at the confrontation after his wedding. Sophia was noticeably absent. Through family connections, I've heard their life isn't proceeding as planned. Thomas's startup is struggling after losing a major investor. Sophia's family, despite their social connections, couldn't provide the financial support they hinted at. Their lavish lifestyle, documented on social media, appears to be funded largely by credit. Last month, Thomas texted me out of the blue, "Lost my main investor today. Company might not survive this." It was the first communication in months that wasn't a demand or accusation. I responded with sympathy, but not money. "I'm sorry to hear that. You're resourceful and intelligent. If anyone can pivot from this setback, it's you." 3 days later, he called. The conversation was awkward, but less hostile than our previous interactions. He asked about my health, mentioned a new business idea, didn't bring up financial support. It was a small step, but perhaps a meaningful one. I'm under no illusions about instant reconciliation. Trust, once broken, takes time and consistent effort to rebuild. But I've seen subtle shifts. Sophia's absence from recent communications, Thomas's slightly more humble demeanor, his interest in aspects of my life beyond my wallet. This painful journey has taught me profound lessons about motherhood, money, and self-worth. I learned that true love can't be bought or sold, that boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary for healthy relationships, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their worst behaviors. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing yourself to be mistreated again. It means releasing the consuming anger so you can move forward. I'm working on forgiving Thomas, not for his benefit, but for mine. For those of you watching who may be in similar situations with family members who value what you can give them more than who you are, I want you to know that you deserve better. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's an act of self-respect, and sometimes those boundaries are the only way the other person will ever recognize your worth beyond what you can provide. The journey of healing continues every day. Some days are harder than others, but I no longer measure my worth by whether my son approves of me or wants me in his life. I've discovered that family can be both those we're related to and those we choose to connect with through shared values and mutual respect. I've learned to love with open hands, not tight fists. When we grip too tightly to those we love, we can crush the very relationship we're trying to preserve. Sometimes we need to release our expectations and allow others the freedom to make their choices, even when those choices hurt us. My door remains open for Thomas to walk through whenever he's ready for a relationship based on love rather than financial gain. Until then, I'm living my life fully surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. If you're facing family estrangement or difficult boundaries with loved ones, please share your story in the comments below. Our shared experiences can help others feel less alone in their struggles. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges. And remember, your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength on your own journey toward healing and self-worth.